Okay, so we're almost done with radicals, okay? We have covered the majority of it, which is basically how to simplify them, how to multiply them, how to add them, how you have to simplify them first before you add them or subtract them, because they have to be the same number under the square root sign, right? Before you can add the coefficients, the numbers in front of the square root sign. However, we've not talked about how they're used in equations, right? So I've put up 6 equations up here, and we're going to do about 6 more after this. There's going to be a bunch on this lecture just to show you examples of how to solve these. Some of you already know, because when some of you took the retake, some of you, I gave you a challenge homework or assignment, and you guys figured it out. But as we look at this, we think, well, I don't know, the square root of x is equal to 7. How can you get rid of the square root of x? How can you get rid of the square root sign? How? That's the big question. How can you get rid of the square root sign? Sal.
You can square it.
Didn't I just say that?
I believe he was quoting you verbatim. Wouldn't you say so, Nathan? Right. Okay. So, right. If you square a square root, the square root and the square disappears, right? They cancel each other out. They're opposite operations. So, if I square this side like this, what do I have to do to the other side?
Square it.
I have to do the same thing to the other side. I have to square that side. Okay? So what is the square root of x times the square root of x?
It crosses it. You mean the square? Yeah.
What's the square root of x squared? Yes, it's x. So look how quickly we got rid of a complicated problem and turned it into a simple problem. Equals what?
49.
49. We're done. That's it. That's the answer. All we did was square. We took something that looked very confusing and weird, and we squared both sides, and we suddenly had the answer. When you square, what happens is the square and the square root cancel each other out. So all you have left is x. Notice that's also the same thing as saying this, the square root of x times the square root of x. Now I notice some of you don't know this yet, and we've covered it several times in class. Square root of x times the square root of x is equal to x. The square root of anything times the square root of that same thing is equal to that same thing, without the square root sign, right? That's the same thing as this. If you square this, it's really that, which is x. There we go. All right, same concept in this one. It looks like a nightmare, sort of, right? So what, Domenica, what would you do? You got to get rid of this square root sign. What would you do? Okay, guys, I'm asking one person at a time. So we're going to square this. What do I do now? What's the rule in algebra that says you have to, whatever you do to one side of the equation? Yes, so I've got to square this side. So now what do I have on this side? 16 equals, what do I have on this side? It's exactly what's underneath it. The square and the square root cross each other out. So all you have left is what's there. Negative 2i. Exactly. Right. Exactly. Okay. So now, Micah, what would you do now? Wait, I'm sorry. Hang a second. What are you guys doing? So, Kara, what would you do now? Sorry.
Yeah.
What would you do now?
He said Sakara.
I'm sorry.
He said Kara. This is Kala.
Oh yeah, Kala.
thought you were Alex.
Kala. This is so confusing. Right. I know. Kala. I'm sorry. Kala. What would you do now? Sorry, Sakara. What would you do now? Yeah. Divide by negative 2. Divide by negative 2. And then those cross out. That becomes negative what?
Negative 8. Wait, no.
Negative 8.
Negative 8. Don't see, Barry. Is that a 2?
What is it, Kala? What is it?
Yes.
Negative 8. Negative 8 is equal to y. That's the answer. You're just trying to get to say y equals or something equals y. So all we did is we squared it. Domenica squared both sides. And then we got that simplified things immensely. Then Kala divided both sides by 2. Got y equals -8. All right. Now, Landon, help me with 3. What? C? Okay, go for it. What do I do?
So, square both sides.
Square both sides. And then what do I get?
Get 28 equals like 100.
28 equals 100. Okay, now what do I do?
Divide by 20.
Divide by 20. Now what do I get?
A equals 5.
5. There we go.
But number 6 is the square root symbol over negative, is the square root symbol over -5.
In which one?
In number 6.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
All right, so for this one now, we'll go to this one. Am I going too fast?
No.
Yeah.
A little bit? So has everybody written this one down yet?
Yeah.
Okay. The beauty of square roots is you can square them and they magically disappear. It's like it's so fabulous. It's like magic. It's really awesome. And it becomes so easy to solve the problem then, suddenly. So now let's go to 4. 4 is the square root of x plus 6 equals 11. Now there is a rule before you do the squaring. There's a rule. And the rule says you must isolate the square root sign, right? What's in the way of it being isolated?
Positive 6.
Yeah, so what would you do, Nathan?
Subtract 6 and subtract 6.
Subtract 6. Good, exactly. Subtract 6. Subtract 6. You cannot square it. If you squared this before you subtracted 6, you would have a nightmare, believe me. Because you haven't learned how to multiply binomials times binomials. But you have to use FOIL. And it's,
I know
or,
how to do that.
do you? Okay, good. Well, so
Wait, you taught us.
it would leave you a mess. Did I teach you that?
Outside, outside left.
Did I really?
Yeah. Oh, except I did that wrong.
First, you
Outside,
inside
inside.
binomials times binomials and trinomials times trinomials.
Cool. All right. Well, so that would be hard. If I had to square this whole side, I'd have to do that. I'd have to do first times first, outside times outside, inside times inside, last times last, and I would have this very complicated looking weird thing. And then I would have to simplify it. I would have